Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we often talk about deep dives that pull together disparate pieces of information, but sometimes the sources themselves are just this chaotic
A
collision.
storm, yeah.
Yeah, a multi-genre storm that just forces you to immediately reevaluate what you even think of as reality.
And that is exactly what we are deep diving into today. It's a universe where the laws of physics seem to have been completely replaced by the laws of narrative.
Right.
We're tracking space merchants who are chasing exotic matter near a quantum singularity, and then bam, they crash land directly into a world populated by fairy tale princes, wicked crones, and yes, we have sources confirming a man who is literally married to a sheepdog.
It's an incredibly dense and complex backdrop from the novel Grimm reality, which is our primary source material for you, the learner. And this isn't just an adventure story. It's really a detailed exploration of what happens when stories become physical law.
Hmm.
And the whole structure of a world hinges on whether a character, chooses to follow a classic trope or actively subvert it.
So our mission today is to unpack the mechanics of this reality. We really need to understand how story logic functions as, like, the actual physics of this place.
Okay.
We'll analyze what the sources call the wishing economy, which treats desire as a form of currency. And then finally, we have to grasp the immediate and frankly terrifying dangers posed by this outside cosmic influence, the white hole, that threatens to just unravel this whole delicate narrative consensus.
Okay, let me set the scene with an image I found just incredibly compelling. The sources detail the library inside the Doctor's ship, the TARDIS.
Ah, yes.
And it is the perfect representation of the informational chaos we're about to get into. It's described as having, the collected wisdom of the eons residing right next to the truly random.
Like what?
Well, you have a pristine lost work by Sophocles, resting right next to 5 over-new editions of Life and Likings of a Lobster.
Right. Knowledge and junk mail, side by side. And that juxtaposition is the core concept we have to establish for you. This world operates entirely on story logic.
Every single thing.
Every single choice, every environment, every object, it all holds narrative weight. It's not about chemical reactions or gravity. It's about archetype. If you are a prince, you have to act like a prince.
And if you're a donor?
You must fulfill the function of the donor. It's not a backdrop. It's a living, reactive entity that enforces these rules.
It actually enforces them.
Oh, absolutely. Failure to adhere to your assigned narrative role results in narrative failure, which in this world can be so much worse than a scientific or physical catastrophe. The world punishes deviation. It's a terrifying form of meta-justice.
Okay, let's start right there with how these literalized fairy tale tropes actually manifest physically. Because when the characters arrive, the environment itself is aggressively enforcing the rules.
Yeah, it starts with these instantaneous geological changes.
Right.
They immediately observe what the sources call the Acme instant forest effect. So they set the TARDIS down in a clearing, and the moment they look away, hundreds of trees have just thrust up out of the ground.
And the key detail here is the absolute lack of physical evidence, right? There's no sound, no roots tearing up the ground, no sign that anything or anyone exerted any effort.
None. And what's really interesting is Fitz's psychological reaction to it. He realizes that despite the impossible speed of its growth, the instant forest suddenly feels subtly not out of place.
It's like the world is retroactively convincing itself that this woodland has been there for centuries.
Exactly. And it even rationalizes the TARDIS's presence by making it look like a police call box naturally belongs there.
That retroactivity, that's the power of this world's consensus reality, isn't it? It doesn't just change, it rewrites its own history instantly to justify the change.
Now contrast that rapid, sort of passive enforcement with the Prince's journey, which is a very dedicated linear narrative, but it's still deeply rooted in trope.
Okay, so the prince is guided by the advice of a silver fox he rescued.
The classic donor figure.
Yeah, a classic act of compassion yields a helpful guide. And the fox gives him this crucial warning. Take nothing until true love offers her hand. That sets up the rule of the reward.
But the path to that reward is anything but charming. The hedge protecting the sleeping princess, the scarlet hedge, is described as being gruesomely practical.
The sources detail the failures, don't they? The previous princes, or maybe just luckless travelers. Their rags and bones are just pinned to these giant, vicious barbs.
It's the blood of those failures that literally stained the hedge scarlet.
Wow. So it's not just an obstacle, it's a permanent memorial to narrative failure. This world doesn't allow for quiet mistakes.
No. If you fail the quest, you become part of the set dressing. You're a warning sign for the next aspiring hero.
And when the prince finally succeeds, when he fulfills that primary narrative drive by kissing the princess, reality itself immediately
And
fractures.
that gives us our first clear demonstration of narrative multiplicity.
Okay, let's slow this down a bit and unpack that concept because it seems vital for the learner to understand this instability. What is actually happening when the kiss triggers all these simultaneous outcomes?
It's quantum fairy tale physics in action. Because the trope demands the princess wake up and the narrative has been fulfilled, every possible permutation of that trope becomes simultaneously true.
So the sources list these distinct contradictory outcomes.
Right. He kissed the princess and she woke, and he touched her and she woke, and he merely set foot in her chamber and she woke as the dust stirred, all at once.
And the consequences also split. The wedding, the very next step, occurs in multiple timelines. The wedding came swiftly, and the wedding came after 3 strange tasks, and the wedding came that Christmas.
Even her physical traits are subject to this split. Her eyes were blue hazel, black as sloes, and they had a son, a daughter, twin sons.
The world can't commit to a single history because the act was so narratively pure.
It's beautiful in a way, but it's also completely unstable. I mean, if reality can't decide if the princess has blue or hazel eyes, how long before it can't decide if gravity works or not?
That instability is exactly what the external cosmic forces are going to prey on later. But for now, let's look at how the characters deal with the local, frustrating reality of these storybook characters.
Starting with a crone by the stream.
Right, a classic test of character. The doctor, ever the chivalrous adventurer, he embodies this mandatory chivalry and offers to carry the ugly old woman across the stream.
And she's described as being quite heavy, but he goes through with it.
But wait, if the world enforces tropes, why does chivalry immediately result in pain? I mean, doesn't the hero usually get, like, a magical nut or some helpful advice?
And that's the critical, dark twist here. The story demands the doctor complete the act of aid, but it does not promise a pleasant reward.
So what happened?
The crone, once she's settled on his back, she hooks her arm under his chin and just grinds his windpipe. When he tries to apply pressure to her arm to make her stop choking him, she just tightens her grip and beats him mercilessly with a stick.
He has to literally ignore the physical sensation of being choked just by not breathing. That is not easy.
Not at all. And her reward is worse than useless. She gives them this cryptic, unhelpful advice, directing them to the giants if they need woodcut, as if giants are just, local lumberjacks.
So it's a painful fulfillment of the donor trope. The narrative debt gets paid, but the payment is violence and useless information.
It's a cynical world. And speaking of cynical, let's talk about the deeply uncomfortable and inconvenient reality of the sheepdog husband.
Ah, Robert the dog. So Anji, who dislikes this persistent animal, she shoves it away, only for the owner, Bella, to show up and immediately start mercilessly beating the animal with a knotted rope.
And the doctor, again, he intervenes, saying the animal has done nothing to deserve the abuse.
But Bella, she's enraged. She implies Anji was meeting Robert for fun and games.
Which suggests a whole other level of twisted narrative interaction. But the true, utterly mundane reality of the curse is revealed by the local dung spreader.
Right. He's the one who provides the context. Robert is Bella's husband, cursed to be a sheepdog by day. He confirms Robert is an excellent dog, but that he tends to stray when night comes.
And this is just the genius of the source material's handling of curses. It's not some grand magical drama. Bella got stuck performing a final task to break the spell, and she failed.
So she's left with an animal husband who still fulfills his canine duties by day,
but still retains all of his deeply frustrating marital flaws like straying by night. It turns high fantasy into this deeply annoying domestic reality.
And while all this is going on, the doctor, being who he is, decides to leverage his own archetype.
He tries to monetize his narrative function as the donor.
He sets up this little stall and tacks up a sign that's just brilliant. It says, Dr. Know-all, advisor and helper, donor in extremis.
He's explaining to Fitz the structural role of a donor, a character who supplies the hero with the means to overcome their antagonist. He's trying to make his knowledge into literal, physical currency in this economy of tropes.
It's knowledge as power, but the frame is entirely narrative. He isn't offering, advanced physics. He's offering guidance on which narrative path to follow next.
Exactly. But this world has its dark underbelly, and Fitz, shivering from cold and hunger, is exposed to the brutal mechanisms of narrative justice.
And ignored evil.
He stumbles upon one of the most chilling images in the sources. the stepmother gallows.
Right. It's a structure of black wood, standing alone in scorched earth. A warning.
And this confirms that the world exacts immediate, permanent physical justice on archetypes that violate the moral contract. The grotesque details reinforce this. Deformed feet swinging overhead with long black nails that are apparently still growing.
And the simple sign just reading stepmother. This isn't metaphorical. This is the literal execution and eternal memorialization of a specific narrative evil. And then the horror that's just normalized. Fitz finds a bit of luck, a shiny copper coin on the threshold of a pub. But inside, the tavern has the singing bone lodged in the rafters.
This is such a powerful moment of psychological numbing. The bone, it's smoke-blackened and dark, and it loudly and repeatedly screams, "Murdered! Oh, murdered! My brother! He has killed me dead!"
A constant, audible accusation of fratricide.
And the patrons ignore it. The barman grunts, complains about foul weather, and blames the noise on that. Other patrons debate whether the victim was ever a lamb. He even prods it with a poker and wishes it would sing for a change.
So you have this constant, audible truth, a literal artifact of vengeance, and the collective consciousness of the world has just rendered it background noise.
The profound horror of this reality isn't just that stories are real, but that the people inhabiting those stories are capable of this profound psychic numbing to overwhelming evil.
That sets a terrifying tone. I mean, if the world is already normalizing screaming evidence of murder, it's ripe for collapse.
And collapse is coming from above.
Okay, so now we have to pull the focus completely away from this medieval magical landscape and pivot to the cosmic forces at play. This is where the science fiction elements just violently clash with the story logic.
We meet William, the miner, and he's already defeated. His ship, the Esmeralda's Dream, has failed him. He was out hunting for highly valuable exotic matter cue balls, strange matter. But his fusion drive burned out.
So he's stranded.
Completely. He has less than 3 hours of air. He's resigned to dying, having missed this ultimate prize he was looking for.
Which was a quantum white hole.
Right. But he gets rescued by the Bonaventure, captained by Christina Morgenstern, a human working alongside a Benak, who are sort of hippopotamus-like, and Vuum, who are insectoid. It's a true multi-species salvage team representing the Trinary Core.
And Christina reveals the find is not just some anomaly, it's a naked singularity. For the learner, let's just briefly explain why that's such a huge deal.
Right. So a singularity is where space-time curvature becomes infinite, like at the center of a black hole. But a naked singularity is one that's not covered by an event horizon.
It's visible.
It's visible. And a quantum white hole is basically the opposite of a black hole. It spews matter out. In this source, it's described as a point of intersection with any conceivable locus in any conceivable universe.
So it's a massive, chaotic, informational leak.
The phrase they use is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's spewing out the flotsam and jetsam of a billion universes. Matter, antimatter, and pure, unprocessed information. It's too much reality all at once, impacting a reality that relies on structure and story.
And the debris from this event is now on the ground, driving the plot.
Yes, the white hole has ejected 6 enormous energy bursts, which result in 6 glowing objects, the boxes on the planet's surface. Christina immediately frames this in terms of corporate profit and species survival. She calls them 6 cures for cancer, or the Vuum's little problem, 6 new technologies.
So these boxes of pure quantum energy are what the Trinary Core merchants are desperate to retrieve before logging their claim. They know the objects alone could net their 3 cultures untold wealth.
But the moment they try to land, the story logic of the planet fights back with lethal efficiency.
The world immediately shows this aggressive hostility to anything alien.
Christina's scout ship sinks rapidly into what's described as peculiarly fecund mud, despite her sensors telling her it was solid ground.
That's the first sign. The environment is actively and instantly rejecting this non-narrative intrusion.
Peculiarly fecund is key. It's living, active, magical mud. And Alex Volpe, the human crewman, he immediately realizes how bad this is because he can't get through on the radio.
The combination of the white hole energy and the planet's own sentience is just jamming all communications.
This resistance escalates to lethal effect. We get this chilling account of Tento, the Abenak, being killed. Alex tracks the energy signature to a cottage that smells alluringly of cake.
Marzipan and heavy icing.
But the cottage is a trap. Inside, there's a vast, pot-bellied stove. And here's where the fairy tale mechanism becomes monstrously efficient and deadly for the aliens.
House.
The stove, disguised as the tempting oven of a witch, licked him inside it, with a great tongue the color of lead, and Tento was burned to death. The smell of cake changed instantly to the smell of roast pig.
So the planet is adapting tropes, the witch's oven, the tempting house, to instantly and lethally dispose of these alien threats using story logic, not kinetic force.
It's a perfect melding of the two threats. They're drawn by technology, the signal sources, but they're killed by literalized magic.
Which explains the growing caution of the viewing captain, who starts to realize the planet's substance has properties of life.
Right, he adopts camouflage, he seems to anticipate their intentions. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Fitz is continuing his own dark narrative journey.
He's stepping fully into the wolfskin trope.
He's hired by these two princes, Guilford and Ansel, to lead them to the Castle of Sighs. He's wearing the ragged wolf hide he acquired earlier, completely unaware of its true significance.
And the source material reveals the true grim weight of that cloak.
It's the skin of the prince's younger brother, whom they murdered and threw to the wolves. A classic sibling rivalry tale. Fitz, by wearing the cloak, becomes the immediate living embodiment of the wronged third brother, the wolfskin.
The story is literally adopting him as its protagonist.
His transformation is entirely story-driven. The cloak will later grant him the ability to understand wolves and eventually transform him into the warrior wolfskin. But the whole process is initiated by the betrayal of the two princes.
They stage a moment where they claim they're out of food.
Right. And Fitz is shocked because he knows the leather pack on the donkey was full. Then he realizes the packs are genuinely empty. They were lying, or perhaps more accurately in this world, they were following the narrative of betrayal, which demanded they be seen as morally bankrupt.
Even if the food just magically disappeared.
Right. And their despicable behavior, refusing a starving old woman even a crumb, is immediately followed by Fitz demonstrating compassion, giving her his last crust of bread.
And that exchange solidifies Fitz's narrative role.
Exactly. The compassionate, yet betrayed third son. It moves him inexorably towards his destined conflict with his treacherous brothers. We can see here that morality is directly tied to narrative progression. Good actions advance the hero. Cruel actions doom the villain.
So if morality and action determine your narrative status, then the wishing economy is the system that monetizes desire itself.
And Anji learns its contractual terms the painful way.
She encounters the hideous witch, the crooked nose, matted hair, the teeth that are crooked, yellowed, and slightly pointed.
A classic. And the witch immediately senses Anji's lack of money, but recognizes her internal avarice and desire. She tempts her with the wishing box.
Which isn't just a container, it's an engine. It's wrapped in dusty blue velvet, and the sources say it hums like a distant chorus of angels singing.
It represents irresistible, concentrated narrative power. And Anji succumbs. But since she has no money, she tries to trade her merino wool coat.
And the witch refuses the coat.
Because the economy demands a specific kind of payment. Her services.
The contract is immediate, painful, and enforced by the world itself. It dictates 1 day of service per sister, for 6 days total. The moment the deal is struck, she's pulled into a speeding black coach and delivered to the 6 sisters.
And the catch is brutal.
She doesn't get to grant her own wishes.
No. She becomes an involuntary donor, forced to grant wishes for her mistresses, the 6 greedy sisters who initiate the wishing game. She thought she was acquiring a tool for wealth. She acquired a contract for servitude.
It's a profound subversion of the wish trope. Greed is instantly punished by becoming the slave of even greater greed. The system ensures payment, but the payment often involves a curse or extreme inconvenience.
Now let's pivot to the giants, whom the crone so unhelpfully directed the doctor to. The doctor arrives at their immense castle, and the architecture is instantly perplexing.
The sheer size of it suggests inhabitants of colossal stature, and he's then introduced to Inox, the gnome who's trapped in a glass surface set into a table.
Right, the glass spirit. And he encourages the doctor to break the glass for his freedom, promising to convey them both from the castle.
And the gnome, fulfilling his own narrative role as the magical helper, makes good on his promise. He magically relocates the doctor to a grassy bank in his sloop, avoiding a tedious physical escape.
But the doctor remains obsessed with the peculiar architecture of the castle.
And this is where we get the analysis of the giant size variation. The doctor and Inox discuss how the lower floor of the castle is clearly built for a big giant, maybe 80 feet tall,
while the second floor is only built to house a medium one, which makes no logical sense in conventional architecture.
The doctor initially speculates that the giant might be shrinking or evolving backward.
But Inox, the resident expert, offers a profound insight into the story logic. He says giants are always cramped, short of space, and claustrophobic beasts.
And the doctor synthesizes this perfectly. The giant is the size it needs to be.
And this is critical for you, the learner. Physical space and size are not defined by biology or architecture, but by psychological necessity or narrative convenience. The giant is exactly as big as the current plot demands him to be.
So when the doctor confronts the giant, the creature immediately demonstrates its narrative-based senses.
He doesn't see them initially. He detects them by their heartbeats. A gnome's heart, pumping fear. A man's heart, two hearts in a new beast.
The giant is dismissive, finding the doctor too puny to eat, but thinks he might be useful for stitching or stories, noting that his vast patchwork coat is made from other people's clothes.
He's a collector of narrative scraps.
And the doctor, in a desperate attempt to leverage his own knowledge archetype, tries to talk his way out of being devoured. He squeaks that he can sing the periodic table to the tune of the modern major general.
I love that. The idea that the most complex scientific knowledge from our universe becomes merely a novelty song in this reality is just a fantastic commentary on the clash of systems.
But the attempt fails.
And the escape is classically grotesque and successful. The giant lunges for the doctor, and the doctor, struggling desperately inside the giant's mouth, manages to thrust the heel of his boot against a sensitive swollen mass, a back molar.
A small, precise act of violence against a known weakness succeeds against overwhelming power. The story structure demanded the little guy find the Achilles heel.
The giant howls, a roar so massive it sends the doctor flying across the room. He just holds his jaw, whimpering.
And the successful act is immediately followed by the doctor meeting Janet the mastermaid, a servant of the giant.
She fits the classic archetype. Rosy cheeks, black curls, wise beyond her years. But the doctor realizes the danger she represents. He looks at her and realizes that if his suspicions about the world are correct, everything human on this peculiar world is in danger.
He expresses urgency to leave, breaking the tradition that might require him to serve 7 days.
And Janet, recognizing the extreme danger, performs a textbook, step-by-step fairy tale escape designed to thwart pursuit. This is the crucial application of pre-programmed narrative knowledge.
She cuts her little finger and drops 3 drops of blood onto a wooden stool.
She then collects the ingredients for a transformation. She fills a chest with salt, takes a water flask, and crucially, takes a dried-up leaf, which she instantly transforms into a boat to sail across the sea.
And those 3 drops of blood on the stool serve as perfect narrative decoys. They stall the giant by offering pre-programmed answers.
Right. When the giant calls down, the first drop says, "It is just beginning," and the second says, "Half done." It buys them time.
But before they part ways, Janet delivers this crucial final warning, demonstrating the planet's continued control over memory and intention.
She tells the doctor that when he gets to the Castle of Sighs, he must not fail to go straight to the fairy stables and tell the steeds where he wants to go.
Or what?
Or he will immediately forget she ever existed. The memory wipe is part of the story's defense mechanism. If Janet's story is over, the world tries to excise her completely from the narrative. The doctor has to actively fight the structure just to remember his friend.
So the doctor is racing to the Castle of Sighs, where the narrative stakes are raised by the presence of the Duke, formerly the Tailor King.
And he is vain, unstable, and actively warping the traditional rules of conduct for his own cruel pleasure.
He cancels the grand ball, which would normally be the climax of a fairy tale, and instead demands 3 cruel tests from his 2 candidates for marriage, Anji and Christina.
The Duke is utterly obsessed with finding a bride who won't dull his own radiance. His vanity is literally reshaping the narrative expectations of the kingdom.
Let's focus on the cruelty of these tests, starting with the test of beauty. The judge is Iron Johann, a man whose heart broke when his wife died, now held together by an iron band.
And the rule is simple. The winner must make him smile or touch her hand.
Christina, the calculating space merchant, she attempts these overtly sensual, languid movements, trying to appeal to his dormant human instincts.
So trying to break through the armor using physical temptation. And she fails.
The resolution, however, comes from pure, benevolent story logic intervention.
Johann's wife, Greta, suddenly appears, dressed simply like a hausfrau returning from market. She gently removes the iron band, revealing it was only a ragged strip of black silk.
And that's the genius of the narrative counterforce. The object of power, the iron band, was only powerful because the story accepted it was. True love and emotional connection immediately exposed its fundamental lie.
And Johann is instantly freed. He recognizes his wife, they dance away, following their own true story path. This shows the fundamental rules of the world are still strong enough to protect those who act with honor.
But the Duke's tyranny continues, culminating in the test of grace, which is just pure psychological torture.
The candidates must carry the largest stack of books, which sounds tedious, but the stakes are horrifying. Servants will be whipped for every dropped book, and children will be branded for every book not carried.
Anji and Christina are forced to attempt the impossible. Anji, driven by moral obligation, she realizes she has to protect the children.
And Christina, in desperation, uses one of the acorns she received, wishing there was a way to save the servants and children and not get squashed. She used her wish for altruistic ends.
And the result is a perfect, miraculous, and narratively protective intervention. The books become miraculously light.
Right. And when Christina and Anji take a step forward and start to fall, an impossible arc of books hangs in midair, supported only by the keystone volume.
The Duke is furious, screaming, "There is magic here!" He draws his sword, intending to strike the women down.
But another narrative force intervenes. An iron guard, an armored suit animated by might of bins, moves impossibly between him and the women, stopping him. The world is literally protecting the righteous from the tyrant, using its own rules.
So the ancient rules are still strong enough to contain the Duke's tyranny.
For now. Meanwhile, Anji's storyline is concluding back at the sister's house where she was imprisoned. Her final wish, likely spontaneous and desperate, results in the appearance of Bricklebrit's grandmother, the crone.
This is a classic fairy tale character, but detailed with this grotesque realism from her life of magical labor. She's hideously deformed.
One foot is huge and flattened from treading. Her lower lip is enlarged from licking thread. Her thumb is broadened from twisting thread. She represents the physical cost of magic.
And she performs the necessary tasks instantaneously.
And the fate of the six sisters is brutally satisfying in its adherence to story justice. Their enchanted ball gowns, the symbol of their greed and vanity, become instruments of execution.
The eldest burns up.
Another is encased in a mesh of tightly woven nettles. Another turns into a pillar of ruby-colored salt, and yet another dies dragging a bustle the size of a boulder until she dies from sheer exhaustion.
So the world's unforgiving story logic punishes pure, unredeemable malice, using their own desired trappings against them.
Their punishment fits the aesthetic crime. And this internal story logic might have corrected the world naturally, but the chaos from the quantum white hole is too pervasive.
And this brings us to the catastrophic conclusion, where the external cosmic energy and the planet's damaged intelligence cause the world to just tear itself apart physically.
The world begins to lurch and rumble violently. The princess's tower, along with a massive section of the town, shoots up into the sky on a 1,000-foot spire of ugly red stone that soon hardens to red glass.
People are marooned on the plateau. This seismic event signals deep core damage to the planet's linked intelligence.
The doctor observes the concurrent atrocities: crows pecking out eyes, a woman dying in childbirth next to a suckling bear cub, and notes that these are warped versions of what already exists.
So the white hole isn't overwriting the narrative with new rules.
No, it's damaging the existing planet, causing the motifs to break badly and manifest as twisted, dark mutations of the expected story.
And the chaos reaches a peak when the TARDIS crisis hits. Hundreds of blue boxes appear, some obvious fakes, some real dangling like pine cones from the trees.
It's pure informational overload. The flotsam of a billion universes, including other doctors' TARDISes, bleeding into their reality.
And the real TARDIS is only found when Christina spots a small personal detail.
A smear of blood on the panel. The prick of pain she felt when she first encountered the wild man. In a world drowning in fake narratives, a tiny personal anchor of truth is the only way through the chaos.
And the metamorphoses underscore the complete blurring of genres. Alex Volpe, who had the key, is later found transformed into a lanky fox.
Pawing at his throat in a human gesture of distress, he only returns the key when the doctor aids him in a fox-like choking fit.
And Christina, after confronting the coalescing white hole energy, is turned into a white cat when the boxes merge.
Alex, who had been fighting the planet's magic with technology, is absorbed into the narrative structure as the fox. Christina, the powerful, calculating corporate figure, is reduced to a domestic feline, a complete erasure of her original persona. These are narrative demotions.
Meanwhile, the original space conflict reaches its climax. William, recovering, realizes the mutiny. Tim Tangle, the Abenaki merchant, has used all the scouts for a secret trade venture.
Greed permeates both the fairy tale and the space opera. The final confrontation occurs on the Bonaventure between the greedy Tim Tangle and the Viewham captain, Cluck, who is determined to stop his fellows from stealing the planetary material.
And it is during this fight that the coalesced white hole energy, the engine of miracles, now containing all the raw, chaotic narrative power, appears in the communication unit, primed for one great wish.
This is the moment where science, magic, and morality converge. The Vume captain has the chance for ultimate power. He could wish for wealth, revenge, absolute dominance for the Vume species.
But he ignores the materialistic temptation.
With his final conscious act, he uses the power for radical selflessness. He wishes for universal peace.
Which simultaneously cures his species' long-standing ailment.
Right. This selfless moral choice is the ultimate disruptive force. It's an act of anti-greed that uses the chaotic power of the boxes, the rival wills, to impose a new, unifying, benevolent narrative onto the world.
And the consequence is immediate systemic restoration.
The white hole vanishes, the planetary matter stolen by the Bonaventure returns, and all the stolen fake TARDISes vanish. The power of a moral choice was greater than the collective will of the chaotic quantum energy.
The world was saved not by advanced technology, nor by the most powerful spell, but by a profoundly moral, story-aligned act.
So if we synthesize this truly incredible deep dive, for you, the learner, the core conflict was really the struggle between a planet whose intelligence was made of established, ordered story logic,
And the chaos of cosmic material, which created powerful, rival, and competing wills powered by wishes.
and the selfless moral choice of the Vume captain was the necessary tool to rebalance the world's fundamental physics, reinforcing the good and benevolent aspects of the narrative economy over the self-serving greed that threatened to tear it all apart.
Our key takeaways for you are crucial, and I think they extend beyond the boundaries of this novel. First, reality is malleable. This world responded to expectation, narrative patterns, and alien quantum physics all at the same time.
The giant was the size he needed to be, and the princess awoke in every contradictory way she could. Your environment is defined by your expectations.
Second, knowledge of structure is power. The Doctor's understanding of story archetypes, knowing what a donor was or what a mastermaid must do, and William's deep knowledge of technology proved absolutely critical in navigating these political and physical minefields.
You can't survive the game if you don't know the rule.
And third, and most profoundly, moral acts matter more than magic or physics.
The Vume captain's final choice, wishing for universal peace rather than personal gain, provided the massive, stabilizing force needed to save the world. It proves that in a reality governed by intention and narrative, radical kindness is the most potent force available.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and this is our provocative closing thought for you to mull over. This world, grim reality, shows us that every action, every choice, every intention has a weight beyond the purely physical. It's narrative weight. So if reality is constantly shaped by the stories we tell and the choices we make, what happens to our own consensus reality when the protagonists, the leaders, the figures we rely on, start acting purely like villains, driven by greed and vanity, and the traditional villains suddenly start acting out of honor and selflessness?
If the narratives we rely on for structure break down and the rules of right and wrong are suddenly inverted, how long can our own reality hold together? Think about that next time you assume your environment is passive.
We'll catch you next time for the next deep dive.